Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's kick off with a story about a small act of pettiness turned into a bit of justice. Stick around to hear how a flicked cigarette could lead to a hefty fine. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. A smoker's costly lesson in responsibility. As I was driving along, I was completely oblivious to my surroundings when the automobile in front of me quickly applied the brakes. There's no need to worry about that because I always allow a large space in case something like that occurs. I drove on without giving it any thought, thinking nothing of it. After that, I became aware that the person driving the vehicle in front of me was puffing on a cigarette. Again, this is not a major concern. There's no rule in the United Kingdom that prohibits smoking while driving unless there's a child passenger. Then, however, I noticed that the driver's throwing their cigarette butt out the window that's open. I have a strong aversion to littering, and I'm always looking for methods to keep myself entertained while I'm driving, so I made the decision to commit the number plate of the car to memory. If they're so reckless as to throw trash out without giving it a second thought, then perhaps they're also so careless as to fail to fulfill their obligations as a car owner. In other words, their automobile insurance and their MOT annual review. It was my intention to test whether or not I could still recall the number plate from earlier, and I was successful in doing so when I arrived home. To determine whether or not this vehicle's tax and MOT are up to date, I entered it into the website of the United Kingdom government. And what did I discover? This tax is more than a month past its due date. Illegal driving was taking place with the vehicle. If you're caught driving a car that's not taxed, you could be subject to a fine of up to £1,000. It goes without saying that I despise littering. As a result, I informed the DVLA that the vehicle's tax was beyond its expiration date by submitting an anonymous report online along with the vehicle's specifics. I have every reason to believe that nothing will come of it, and because the report was filed anonymously, I'll never know if the driver will face any penalties for his actions. However, it's comforting to know that it's feasible, and all of this is due to the fact that they don't have an ashtray in their vehicle. Well done, OP. You noticed someone littering, a petty but infuriating act, and decided to take a deeper look, uncovering an even bigger offense. Reporting the untaxed vehicle was a smart move. It's a consequence they might not see coming, and it's entirely on them for not following the rules. The fact that you took the time to potentially hold this person accountable is satisfying in itself. Sometimes small victories like this are the most rewarding, especially when they come from someone's careless behavior catching up with them. And our second story. The Golden Rule meets towering justice in the electronics aisle. This story starts with a visit to help purchase/set up a computer for my mother who lives in another state. Cast: me, towering man of muscle; TMM, angry couple, AC. I end up taking her out to one of the big local electrical retailer stores and wearing my white polo shirt because it's really hot and the rest of my clothes are black t-shirts. It's Monday around 5 p.m., and when I pull up and wheel my mother into the store, we head straight for the iPads. Turns out it ends up being exactly what she was after, save for the specifications. We spend a few minutes discussing and pointing at the various differences, HDD size and cellular plus Wi-Fi versus Wi-Fi. I pick up the empty demo box to take to the counter, my little gift to her, but she plucks it from my hands and wheels off. When I receive a tap on my shoulder and turn to see a small queue of about 4 to 5 people standing around the Apple Display Products Island, some with papers in hand, others with hopeful looks. I'm a fairly well-built Australian guy, but this guy made me look tiny. TMM. Sorry to bother you, mate. I'm after one of them iPads for my missus's birthday. In his arms were two, by comparison, different tiny iPads and had some questions, clearly catching the end of my conversation with my mother, who's by now in line at the counter to pay for her new iPad. Inwardly, I shrug my shoulders, seeing no staff around save for a young kid in his work blue polo shirt and black pants at the door greeting people. Me. I don't work here, mate. But if you're just after advice, sure, let's point out the differences. Took him through a similar demonstration, which seemed to satisfy him and the rest of the group that had crowded around me. As I start my walk away, a couple that had been quietly arguing at the side of the table but never made eye contact move together to block my path and angrily state, AC, you've been ignoring me and my husband for almost an hour. Why is everyone at this store so useless? I want your best price for this Mac, but it needs to have... She looks at her husband, who pulls out a specifications list, clearly from Dell's Alienware site, waving it in front of my face. I swallow hard, the amount of anger surprising me, and past jobs back home have forced me to tolerate such people. But heck, I didn't care. After all, a few seconds of that stating, me, sir, lady, I don't work here. Gets cut off by the husband scoffing at my statement, pointing at where the little group of people I'd helped previously had been at. AC, why were you helping them? I swear it's all the same with you kids. I'm 28 and have a pretty good beard going on. Me, because they asked nicely, sir, walks around them and goes to leave as the lady raises her voice. I swear, people were looking at them now. AC, why not me then? Screeches the lady. In this moment, a booming voice from behind me almost makes me vacate my bowels. TMM, he doesn't even work here for you gits. The shock on their faces when he had spoken was priceless, and I turned away from the couple and joined my mother leaving the store with a smile and a thankful nod to the TMM. Golden rule, seriously. You handled this retail pandemonium extremely well. Helping TMM was smart. Who wouldn't help a polite guy? Then the angry couple marched in like they'd practiced their theater part, ignoring human decency. Your calm response was great, but TMM's booming call-out was MVP. Chef's kiss must have been satisfying. He doesn't even work here, you gits. These tales renew trust in the universe's humor and strangers' bravery. And our last story. Karen learns the hard way not to mess with private property. Living near the beach sounds idyllic, right? Well, it is. Until entitled tourists decide your property is their personal parking lot. My husband, Paul, and I live about a 10-minute walk from the beach. And on sunny days, our neighborhood turns into a free parking lot for beachgoers who don't want to pay for closer spots. To avoid the hassle of finding a street spot, we converted part of our small front yard into a parking space for my car. It's snug, but it works perfectly for us, leaving enough room to access the shed and unload groceries. Plus, it's our property. No one else should even think about parking there. Of course, shouldn't doesn't mean won't. Last weekend, the weather was unseasonably nice, sunny, crisp, and perfect for a beach day. Paul and I took our son to his karate class using my car, leaving the front yard spot empty. When we returned a few hours later, we were greeted by the audacity of someone else's SUV parked in our yard like they owned the place. Me. You've got to be kidding me. Who does this? Paul. Someone who's about to learn a very expensive lesson. We decided to handle this the proper way. I called the non-emergency police line to ask what to do. The officer on the phone advised us to contact a tow truck company and said they'd send someone to supervise if needed. I waited outside for the tow truck while Paul kept an eye on our son inside. When the truck arrived, the driver was polite and professional. I showed him proof of residence, offered him a bottle of water, and watched as he hitched the SUV up with practiced efficiency. Tow truck driver. This happens more often than you'd think. Some people just don't get it. Once the car was towed, the driver handed me his card in case the owners came back and left me with a smile. I parked my car back in its rightful spot and thought that was the end of it. About 2.5 hours later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a furious couple standing there. Let's call them Karen and Ed. Entitled dude. Karen, where's our car? Me. It's been towed. It was parked on our property. Ed. What do you mean your property? There's no sign. Me. It's our front yard. We don't need a sign. It's private property. Karen crossed her arms, glaring at me like I just committed a heinous crime. Karen, you can't do that. That's theft. Me. No, it's not. The tow company has your car. Here's their number. I held out the tow truck driver's card, but Karen smacked it out of my hand. Karen, you're lying. You probably sold our car or something. At that moment, Ed decided to escalate things by lunging toward the door, trying to force his way into our home. Paul heard the commotion, saw Ed trying to push past me, and rushed to the door. Without a word, he shoved Ed back and slammed the door shut, while Karen and Ed pounded on the door and rang the bell like lunatics. We called the police. A few minutes later, 2 officers arrived. Paul went outside to explain the situation while I stayed inside, 19 weeks pregnant and in no mood for more drama. Paul: they parked on our property without permission, so we had their car towed. Now they're harassing us and trying to force their way into our house. The officers turned to Karen and Ed, who were still fuming. Ed: they're lying. They stole our car. Karen: we have every right to park there. There's no sign saying it's private. Officer: actually, they don't need a sign. It's their property. The car's been towed legally, and you're trespassing right now. You have 2 choices: leave willingly or leave in handcuffs. Karen: you can't do this. We're the victims here. The officers didn't budge. Karen and Ed stormed off, shouting about how we'd ruined their day and would be hearing from their lawyer. Spoiler alert, we never did. Later that evening, the tow truck company called to check in and share a laugh about the situation. Tow truck driver: they were not happy when they picked up the car. They kept asking if they could get a discount. It was hilarious. Lesson learned: don't park where you don't belong. As a precaution, we've since put up a small sign near the edge of our shed that reads "Private property, cars will be towed." But honestly, I kind of hope Karen and Ed try again. I could use the entertainment. What a crazy family. Karen and her husband treating your front yard like a public parking lot was infuriating enough, but their audacity to claim victimhood after trespassing is on another level. The calm and lawful way you handled it, getting the tow truck and letting the police deal with their tantrum, was perfect. Their attempt to force their way into your home just added another layer of absurdity. Thankfully, the officers had no patience for their antics, shutting down their "we're the victims" narrative. That new sign might keep others in check, but part of me hopes for a Karen sequel too. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.